Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe my channel. Elias Vance now stood in the cavernous obsidian observatory, no longer the dusty archivist, but the bewildered apprentice to time itself. The initial thrill of discovery had curdled into a cold, heavy purpose. The Atlas of Lost Hours, still warm in his hands, was not a record of the past, but a predictive shadow map of moments that, if realized, would shatter the fragile timeline. His task as the Chronos Keeper was to observe these hours and ensure their continued lost status, a duty that terrified him. The telescope, a colossal instrument of polished copper and brass, hummed with a low, resonant energy. Elias consulted the atlas, its pages now covered in luminous, complex glyphs that hadn't been there before. He sought the first lesson, the first hour he was meant to track. His fingers settled on an entry marked Hour 3.1, the shattered convergence. The description was chillingly brief. When the thread breaks, the weave unravels. Seek the light that was never born. He ascended the three-tiered platforms surrounding the telescope. The brass mechanism required not motors or gears, but pure, focused intent. He rested his hands on the massive adjustment wheels, feeling the copper warm to his touch, and silently willed the barrel to the coordinates indicated in the atlas. With a sound like ice cracking deep under a winter lake, the obsidian dome above shifted its perfect split, aligning the cold shaft of starlight precisely with the telescope's aperture. Elias pressed his eye to the finder. Instead of the nebula and starfield he expected, he saw a flickering monochromatic image. It was a space that looked eerily familiar, the eastern wing of the Chronos archives, but utterly ruined. Books lay scattered like fallen dominoes, the air thick with smoke, and a gigantic, gaping hole stood where the fifth bookshelf of the astronomy section should have been. It was a vision of the archive's future, or its fate. He leaned back, breathing heavily, the smell of ozone now mixed with the acrid scent of burning paper. The atlas was warning him. The shattered convergence was a potential reality, a moment where the very hiding place of the lost hours would be destroyed. But why? Who knew of this place? Driven by a sudden protective surge, Elias peered back into the lens, this time focusing on the moment of the convergence itself. The monochrome scene stabilized and a figure appeared in the center of the devastation, the previous Chronos Keeper, an older woman Elias had vaguely known as the quiet, eccentric head of cataloging. She was standing amidst the wreckage, not panicking, but performing a desperate sacrificial act. She held a duplicate of his atlas, not velvet green, but hardened obsidian slate. And as destruction bloomed around her, she threw the slate into the void. A spectral wave radiated from the impact point. Elias heard her voice, distant but piercing, amplified by the lens itself. The archive is too loud. The silence is the shield. In that instant, the vision cleared, replaced by the normal, stable view of a distant, unnamed galaxy. Elias understood. The Chronos Archives, with its labyrinthine stacks and secrets, was not just a library, it was an anchor. The lost hours were not merely recorded here, they were stored here, kept dormant by the sheer weight and quiet authority of the institution. The previous keeper had sacrificed her atlas, and perhaps her life, to enforce the silence and shield the world from the convergence. He ran his hand over the velvet cover of his own atlas. By discovering this chamber and reawakening the telescope, he hadn't just stepped into a job. He had reversed the final desperate protective measure of his predecessor. The shield was weakening because the silence had been broken. Elias turned from the telescope, the brass rings on the atlas spine clicking ominously. He was no longer just protecting books. He was protecting the delicate structure of time from the very knowledge he now possessed. His task was to reestablish the silence, not through hiding, but through constant vigilance, to track the hour of the shattered convergence and ensure it never reached its critical state. The loudest place in the world demanded the quietest resolve. His work, the true work, had begun.